installment of Trust Matters, Real Estate and Estate Planning Solutions with Gateville Law Firm's Sean Robertson. Gateville Law Firm in Yorkville and online at gatevillelawfirm.com. Sean, thanks for joining us again in studio. How are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing pretty good as we got underway with our first show last week, and hopefully you got a chance to catch that and get a little more background on Sean. And now we kind of want to dive into a new topic. I'm sure there's plenty of things with these different types of situations for real estate attorneys to focus on, and a good one today with wills and trusts. That's kind of our focus. Will and a trust, we all know the terms. Maybe there's differences that we're not too familiar with. What would be the main difference, I guess, between a will and a trust?
I think the main difference, Mike, is a will isn't effective unless you take it to probate court. So we have a lot of people that come in where they just got a piece of property in real estate from one of their loved ones. They come in with the will, and then we've got to tell them that they've got to go through probate court, that the will isn't effective unless they go to probate. And most people are discouraged by that, where the difference is a trust can avoid probate court altogether. So what you have to do is place your house or your assets in the trust name, and it bypasses court. So the first difference between a will and a trust is a will is a lot of times not realistic because people have to spend more money upon a death, where trust is quick, easy, and simple. The second difference is a trust is just like a will. It's not just for the rich, where it just outlines what you want and how to achieve that goal. But the difference is one's with court and one's without court.
So people probably, when they think about having to take this step for the time of their life when this will come into play, they probably just automatically think will. Do they even think trust? Is that something that doesn't pop into their mind right away?
I think most people don't. The only ones that we find that a lot of people are coming in because they had a bad experience where they didn't realize that a will has to go through court. So that's exactly what occurs, Mike.
Yeah, trust, just from what you explained, do sound easier. So if someone calls and wants some advice or information, are you going to kind of point them in the way of a trust instead? Or
yeah, we generally what we do is we'll listen to the people and what their concerns are, and we will set things up in a way that makes sense for them. Most people, I think a trust makes the most sense, but you've got to treat everybody differently because not everybody is suited for a trust.
Are there any things that wills do that trusts don't, or are they virtually identical in what they can accomplish and what they can set forth for your children, your loved ones, and everything else?
So trust has a lot more advantages, I think. Like, for example, a lot of people, particularly with minor kids, don't want kids to get money at a young age. Where trust, you can set certain parameters and restraints, and you can give people control, where a will doesn't do that. The one thing that a will does do well, and a lot of times a will is part of every good trust, is you can say who you want to be the guardian of your kids. In case you have minor children, or if you have a disabled adult, you can say who you want to be a guardian. So a will is a part of every good trust plan, but I think a trust is probably more realistic in a lot of cases.
There's also a term, too, called power of attorney, right?
Correct.
That's separate from all of this, and what does that do?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are two types of powers of attorney, one for finances and one for healthcare. So powers of attorney are part of a comprehensive estate plan. So whenever we do a trust or a will, we normally include a power of attorney for property and healthcare.
All right. Within the next minute or so that we have left on the show, what are some other points with wills and trusts that are important for our listeners to know?
I think the one thing that most people underestimate is incapacity. For a lot of the older people that we're seeing, their kids are coming in with powers of attorney and they're having problems with, whether it's with the title company or whether with the bank. They're finding that trusts are just easier for people with incapacity and the older they get. So I think the big difference between a will and a trust is incapacity planning. That's the one key advantage that a trust offers that a will does not.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is all good information, and if you have questions and want to find out more, you can contact the folks at the Trust Matters Real Estate and Estate Planning Solutions home. That's Gateville Law Firm. Sean Robertson is our guest. Gateville Law Firm in Yorkville. They're at gatevillelawfirm.com or 630-780 1034 at Gateville Law Firm Trust Matters. We'll see you again next week at the same time for another edition of Trust Matters Real Estate and Estate Planning Solutions from Gateville Law Firm and Sean Robertson.